Ambassador Ivo Daalder joins me now live. He is the president of the Chicago Council on Global Affairs and the former U.S. ambassador to NATO. Ambassador, welcome to the program. Russia's deputy foreign minister described these talks as a, quote, moment of truth in our relations with the alliance. What is your takeaway from what we've heard from this morning's meeting?
Well, it's all pretty discouraging. The Russians came to NATO basically asking them for unilateral surrender, for NATO to abandon its own commitment in its original treaty to allow countries to be part of NATO, and for NATO to withdraw all of the military equipment that it has put forward in the Eastern and Central European countries that have joined NATO since 1997. NATO's not going to accept that. It's not going to rewrite history in the way that Vladimir Putin wants to. The problem is that the Russians aren't willing to talk about anything else. There are ways to de-escalate. There are ways to address their security concerns through arms control and other means. But the Russians clearly are coming here with a gun pointed at the Ukrainian heads as well, and at the same time trying to get NATO to, frankly, surrender unilaterally. It ain't going to happen.
Yeah, and that having been said, given the non-starters that Russia presented, you know the situation in dealing with Russia all too well. They are very hostile and have been with NATO, even more so than with U.S. officials. What's the likelihood that they will meet some sort of agreement, given that the one person who decides all of this is Vladimir Putin, and he's not there? These representatives may not even know what he's planning to do.
No, that's right. It's all in Vladimir Putin's head, and he's the one who's going to make a decision, and he'll ultimately have to make a calculation. Clearly, Putin, who actually remember was a KGB officer in East Germany when the wall came down 30-plus years ago, has resented the fact that the Soviet Union lost the Cold War, and has resented the fact that the Soviet Union collapsed. He's trying to now find a way to in some ways to take what the Soviet Union lost at that time. That's really what's driving him. And so the question he is facing: how much does he want to risk in order to get there? The reality is, even if he takes military action against Ukraine, he may be able to take part and occupy part of Ukraine, as he did indeed in 2014 when he invaded and annexed Crimea. But as the result, the Ukrainians will become more anti-Russian, more likely to be wanting to have ties to the West, and NATO will spend more time providing reassurance and military capabilities and equipment in Eastern Europe in order to make sure that these countries can be defended. So the reality is what he's threatening is likely to bring about the very thing he's hoping would go away.
And what he's arguably obsessed with, that is the past and NATO's relationship with Russia and the former Soviet Union. NATO is now looking forward. And I'm curious to get your thoughts on perhaps what could come of an invasion. And that is the real possibility the non-NATO members like Finland and Sweden may be willing to join. So do you think that, if anything else, would be a deterrent for Putin? And do you think that they should be welcome if, in fact, they do want to join?
Well, if Finland and Sweden want to join NATO, then I think there's little doubt that NATO will and certainly should welcome them to become part of it. And that's the dilemma that Putin faces. The instrument he's chosen to try to get what he wants, a threat of a military invasion in Europe, is likely to strengthen NATO, to make it more likely that NATO gets closer to his borders, has more military equipment there, and may, in fact, bring in new members, as you say, Finland and Sweden, and perhaps break the deadlock even on the question of whether Ukraine at some point should be a member of NATO, which at the moment NATO is divided on. But if Russia acts in the way that it is threatening to act, even that question comes on the table. So the very thing he's trying to avoid may come about by the actions he's taken, and I hope that he thinks about those consequences before deciding to take military action against Ukraine.
Except, I would say, in a dark way at least, what he's gaining is the attention of the world in a time when at least the United States had been hoping to move to other areas, particularly to China. Ambassador Ivo Daalder, as always, thank you for your expertise. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.